Nürburgring centre in the western part of Germany, in that little red blob, well, that is the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. The beautiful cathedral city of Cologne to the north of the Nürburgring is the major city in the area. Well, we have enjoyed glorious weather all weekend at the Nürburgring, and Jonathan Green's down in the pit lane to bring us an update on what's going to happen this afternoon.
Well, John, one of the main concerns here at the Nürburgring is the overall temperature. It's much milder than expected, and that's been a problem for most of the teams trying to get heat into their tyres. The temper of the track, that's why qualifying took a long time for the teams to get going. Most of the Goodyears, we believe, are on the harder compound, where the Bridgestones are on the soft. But it seems that getting heat into the tyres and an understeer problem, which is inherent for this track, seems to be the major problems that most of the teams are dealing with this weekend.
I think it's a problem most teams still really haven't got the answer to. But of course, one thing that has been dominating all weekend is this championship battle. And Derek Bell, welcome once again. Can you give us some of your insight?
Well, fortunately for us, John, the World Championship will not be decided this weekend. Jacques Villeneuve, well, he won his first Grand Prix here last year. He also won in Austria last weekend. He out-qualified Michael here this weekend as well, so the Williams-Villeneuve combination is on a course to win the World Championship, in my opinion. And I believe Jacques can and will take the World Championship lead this weekend. So just to put extra effort into it, his one weakness, starting. And he's been practicing starts for 3 hours at Silverstone last weekend. Michael Schumacher, well, he's had 2 disappointing races. He overtook under the yellow in Austria, and of course that cost him 2nd place. The Ferrari really was very strong mid-season, but now, well, they're getting a problem with the lighter car. Doesn't seem to work quite so well. Michael, of course, handles pressure very well, and of course he'll extract absolutely everything from the car. But in my book, Jacques Villeneuve certainly looks the more confident. Michael Schumacher, of course, in the rain, well, he is outstanding. There isn't any rain here this weekend, as you can see. Of course, the next race is in Japan at Suzuka, and of course it could well rain there. Circus still go down for final race at the wire at Portugal.
Well, for me, the body language of Jacques Villeneuve is telling me an awful lot about that young Canadian, and also a look in his eye. And that's a look that Jonathan Green had down in the pit lane just a few moments before we go onto the grid.
Obviously, with just 1 point in it, 3 races to go, which particular circuit of the 3 tracks that are coming up do you think the Williams will have an advantage?
Well, Suzuka is where we'll have the most advantage. I think this is a good type of layout for the car and for myself, so I'm looking forward to going there. This track should be good. We'll just have to wait and see how cold it is on qualifying and on race day.
In terms of the tyres for this weekend particularly, how much is it going to be a gamble for you in terms of how you qualify and how good your tyres are for the race?
We don't know enough about the tyres yet. I'm not there. I don't have a great feeling about the tires this weekend. They don't seem to heat up enough, so it's going to be difficult.
How do you feel at the moment?
Oh, pretty good. It wasn't a great day, but we can work tonight and improve the car a lot like we did in Austria.
Best luck this weekend.
Thanks.
You know, Jacques Villeneuve has got a really outstanding strike rate, 30 Grand Prix with 10 wins and 11 poles, and to boot, he's a very bright, intelligent young guy. Well, one man who knows him particularly well, in fact, was his teammate last year. That's the reigning world champion, Damon Hill. We're looking at him just preparing for this afternoon's Grand Prix. Jonathan Green caught up with him in the pits a little bit before this.
Damon, first of all, about the championship. You've been in this position fighting against Michael Schumacher. With 3 races to go and just 1 point between Jacques and Michael, what do you think is going to be the biggest factor that's going to change the situation, as it were, and give one guy the advantage?
I would say the weather. I think on the evidence we have this season so far, I'd say that Jacques has got the edge competitively. I think the car, in all things being equal, I think Jacques should win. He should be ahead at the end. But if it rains, I would not expect Jacques to do as well as Michael. And given that Suzuka at this time of year is quite tricky, yeah, I would say there's there's hope for Michael in that department. Yeah.
Will there be a psychological battle going on as well?
Oh well, I think that it's not going to come to that stage. I think that they seem to be quite removed from each other. Neither one seems to have made any comments about the other during the season so far. You know, Michael knows that Jacques got all the work to do, and he's, you know, he's really going to win it if Jack doesn't deliver the goods. And it's for some reason or other that Michael's remained rather quiet about Jack, and Jack has remained rather quiet about Michael, it seems. But there's still time left between now and the end of the season.
Damon Hill at his laconic best, but I'm not sure whether Mum Betty would be very happy to see her little darling doing an interview and at the same time sucking on a toffee. Well, of course, Damon Hill knows Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher probably better than anybody in the field, and those comments are worth paying attention to. Well, lovely scenes around the Nürburgring circuit there, the thousands of fans that have turned up to support Michael Schumacher, but of course a great return for Olivier Panis. First pole for Michael Schumacher, 100th Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, that was actually Mika Häkkinen's first pole. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment as we look at Jarno Trulli, wishing he was driving today.
The aluminum in your car radiator is as thin as this sheet, and it's the only thing between you and a breakdown. But Prestone antifreeze bonds with aluminum, forming a zone of protection against corrosion and temperature extremes. Protect your car in the Prestone zone. And also, check out Prestone Low-Tox antifreeze, specially formulated to give an extra margin of safety around pets and wildlife. Prestone Low-Tox, it's extra protection in the Prestone.
They arrive at 180 miles an hour into this particular corner, the Castrol's turn. They come out of there and work their way down, all the way down the hill towards the Dunlop curve. The Dunlop curve is vital because it actually leads onto a very fast uphill section. It's quite cambered as they go through here, get the power down, work their way all the way up, and then, of course, the bit curve. The bit curve, as they turn into it now with Villeneuve, it feeds its way downhill up to 170, 180 miles an hour as they work their way up to the Vidal chicane. Here we have Eddie Irvine showing us not how to do it, beating heck out of that car. Look at that rear wheel oscillate. Works their way up, of course, into the Coca-Cola curve. This takes us onto the pit straight, 180 miles an hour at the end of the pit straight. It's a medium downforce circuit, high-speed straight, high G-force corners. A great circuit, very demanding and fun to drive on. Let's go down to Harvey Postlethwaite of Tyrrell, who will be giving us his interpretation of setting the car up for the Nürburgring.
The Nürburgring, unfortunately, is a circuit which brings out understeering cars because it's got longish corners that are medium speed, and the drivers the whole time are trying to keep the front of the car in. So we come here, first of all, with quite a lot of downforce because it's that sort of circuit, but then we have to make all those adjustments which get rid of understeer. All the normal ones like wing and ride height, a little bit of toe in, a little bit of toe out, just those little things which help understeer, help in that phase of the corner. But then a number of particular tricks to do with the springing, to do with the damping, to do with all those little things which just help the driver. He's going to have understeer, you'll never get rid of it completely, but all those little things which improve it, and if you can get it right, it's worth quite a lot of time around here.
Thanks, Harvey. Well, that bit of low flying by Jos Verstappen in his Tyrrell chassis ended up in the team having to replace it. They built up a brand new car overnight, and Jos Verstappen went out. He had a problem in the morning and actually did a little bit of further damage, but this time it wasn't Jos's fault. He had a tyre problem. So we're looking at the man on pole position, Mika Häkkinen. Tried so hard. It is his birthday today, 29 years of age. Mika Häkkinen, this is his 94th Grand Prix, and the man was absolutely delirious about that final success. He was denied it in Austria 1 week ago, but got it here on Saturday afternoon. But let's have a look at the grid for this afternoon's Luxembourg Grand Prix. Pole position, as I say, Mika Häkkinen for the first time for McLaren since '93 in Australia. First time for Mercedes-Benz since Monza '55. Championship contender Villeneuve joins him. This time couldn't get it won over Mika Häkkinen. Second row, Frentzen backing up Villeneuve. Alongside him, Fisichella, another good performance from the Italian in the Jordan Peugeot. Michael Schumacher in his 100th Grand Prix in the third row, alongside David Coulthard. So interesting starting strategy from the world champion. Gerhard Berger in the fourth row, alongside the enfant terrible Ralf Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello and Jean Alesi in the fifth row. Sixth row returnee Olivier Panis and Jan Magnussen. Seventh row Damon Hill, Eddie Irvine. Eighth row we got Panis and Denise and Johnny Herbert. Ninth row Nakano and Marquez. 10th row Morbidelli and Mikasalo. And the last row 11 Jos Verstappen, Ukio Katayama. We look there at David Coulthard, starts on 6th place as Mika Hakkinen leads this 22-car field around the final parade lap for a 67-lap Grand Prix here this afternoon in the Nürburgring. This is the Grand Prix of Luxembourg. And a race, Derek, as they stream down into this first corner, the Castrol's notoriously difficult at the start of a Grand Prix.
Of course, it leads straight away, John, into that Castrol's turn. Very, very difficult indeed for them. But of course, again, at this stage of the championship, this young man here, Jacques Villeneuve, he's not going to want to tangle with Mika Hakkinen. I'm sure he'd like to be in the lead. But of course, he's not going to tangle with him. He validly needs second place points will do him as long as Michael's behind him. Again, Schumacher, he's going to want points as well, so he's not going to make any errors either. And so I think it favours Mika Hakkinen. I think it gives Mika the chance to actually get away. Mika's got nothing to lose and all to win, and it would be wonderful to see him win in that Mercedes this weekend.
Well, we know that everybody on the Goodyear Tower, with the exception of the Jordan team and one of the two Benettons, are on the Goodyear Prime Tower. That's the harder compound. All the Bridgestone runners are on their optional tower. That's the soft compound. So tire choice determined prior to qualifying on Saturday afternoon really will play a large part in this afternoon's proceedings. It isn't, Derek, it isn't tire wear the problem. It's just a drop-off in tire performance. We're anticipating, based on historical fact, that all the teams will stop for 2 times. But of course, it's possible that McLaren could go the one stop. They've got sufficient fuel capacity on their car to do that. And an interesting strategy in view this afternoon with Hakkinen on pole, that clearly is going to be an option.
This is the good place to park, John. Coming up here into the chicane. You cannot see the entrance of the chicane. From here it looks a piece of cake, but in the car you cannot see the chicane. And Villeneuve remarked earlier, there are no 300, 200, 100 meter boards, so it's all right when you're on your own because you can pick the position, but when you come up inside somebody to overtake, you cannot see the point, and that is a very critical thing from this driving point of view. Errors could be made, and that chicane, as we saw earlier, is very, very hard on the chassis.
Well, looking at Michael Schumacher, of course, the hero of Germany, starting in 5th place on the grid. There you see the 3rd car on the right of your screen. Schumacher has finally opted to run the lightweight chassis. He's been in and out of the lightweight in the regular car all weekend. He made a decision that he was going to go with the lightweight car. There's his principal protagonist in the championship. But let's sit down, watch the start of this Grand Prix as the back rows, they begin to file into position. Michael Schumacher wearing one of those helmets with all the aerodynamic devices around the back of it to reduce the turbulence and help airflow into that end. But turn up the volume, folks. Let's listen to these engines as we prepare for the start of the Luxembourg Grand Prix. Great start from Mika Hakkinen, and David Coulthard forces his way between Michael Schumacher and Fisichella. Watch Coulthard on the left of screen. It's the 2 McLarens that have taken the lead. But Mika Hakkinen's got it. Villeneuve's contact with Hans-Harold Frentzen as they stream contact. 2 cars, 3 cars off.
Schumacher keeps his foot in it. Straight, look at him sideways, back on the road across the dirt. Boy, does he need the keep on the road, but there has to be red flag. I don't know about that. There's certainly yellows, and they're hitting again.
Well, you wouldn't think this is a battle for the championship. This is like War of the Worlds, Part 3. Fisichella's out. Michael Schumacher went on the grass. Frentzen went onto the gravel, I should say. But the 2 McLarens of Hakkinen and David Coulthard pull away as Fisichella steps out of his car. There is no sign, Derek, anywhere around the track we have seen yet of a red flag indicating this race is going to be restarted. That's a decision that is going to be taken by Charlie Whiting. He is in charge of safety here. But what disaster for Schumacher having to go across the gravel. The Villeneuve appears to have gotten clear in 3rd place, but we wait for confirmation as the field files its way through the fastest part of the track up to those S's for the first time.
Well, both the Jordans are out, we hear. That is tragic for Eddie Jordan. There was such a schmozzle, as we talked about, coming into that Castrol S, vital part of the circuit. But look at it, the Ferrari's way back down there, latter part of the field. Schumacher way back, just what he didn't want, just what Villeneuve wanted.
Hakkinen, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Barrichello, great start from the Brazilian. Alesi, Magnussen, what a great, and where is Michael Schumacher? He's way back in the pack. And there we see Fisichella's car being pulled to safety. What a tragedy for the Jordan Peugeot team, and also for all those fans of Ralf Schumacher. But look how far back Michael Schumacher has dropped. He's outside. Certainly he's running in 10th place.
Yeah, that's not a good position for him to be with. It's not easy to overtake. He's behind the Prost, he's behind Hill, he's behind so many people. He's really out of contention right now. Jacques Villeneuve should relax and really concentrate consolidate, get the car absolutely right as they work their way up to the fastest part of the circuit, up into the bit curve, and then, of course, down this back straightaway.
Well, I suppose Germany must be delighted with the fact that the two Mercedes-engine cars, McLarens of Mika Häkkinen leading. Remember, Mika, 29th birthday today. David Coulthard, teammate, a storming start. He came from 5th all the way up to 2nd. But that start, Derek, there was contact, I think, between the two Williams of Villeneuve and Frentzen. But what actually preempted the incident in the chicane, we couldn't clearly see. But I think that it was Fisichella just got squeezed between something and a Ferrari. We look at, I think that's Tarso Marquez or Katayama and the Minardi going into the pits as they come across the line for the second time. 2 laps in the book. Coulthard 1.7 seconds behind. Villeneuve 3rd. Barrichello still 4th. Alesi 5th. Great performance from Magnussen to run in 6th place. Real opportunism in that first. And to Damon Hill in 7th place. And Pedro Diniz up there as well.
Right up behind him. And then it appears Johnny Herbert. And here's watch the start again. You see Schumacher goes right across to the outside, or to the as we look at the screen to our right. Schumacher moving his way back across, pinched in there between the two Jordans. Look at them pinching Schumacher out. Schumacher's in the pits. There must be something wrong. He's out of the car. His race is run. That gives Villeneuve the lead in the World Championship, unless of course he fails to finish as well.
And Derek, I have to say, looking at that replay, it looks as if Ralf Schumacher might have been the person that caused all that problem, because he shot down the outside of Michael, and Fisichella was on the other side, so the two Jordans, I think, sandwiched.
This is why Michael came in, John. This is why Michael came in. It's nothing to do with the start. He went across that chicane. He had nowhere to go but across the chicane. I don't know if he's pushed out there. It's his own fault, but he just damaged the car, and that's it. He's out of the race, and his World Championship chances look very bleak right now.
Well, what drama. Look at this up at the Beadle chicane. And we see the marshals trying to pull traffic. Another car there, Derek. We don't know which car that was, but 3 laps down, Häkkinen across the line, now over 2 seconds. But there's been so much happen in that first lap with Michael Schumacher here in the first corner. I believe the two Jordans were the cause of that. They sort of squeezed Michael. Nobody gave way. Look, still gravel on the track. Fastest race lap to the Finn, 1:21.406, of course, some way away from the pole time, 1:16.6. That indicates to me that Mika Häkkinen may well have more than enough fuel to go for one stop, Derek. And of course, having got the lead as he's done, well, that doesn't happen. Look, let's watch again. Now watch. There, you see the squeeze. Coulthard comes through. Then watch. Ralf Schumacher comes from left to right as they come down in. The two Jordans sandwich Michael Schumacher now. Well, no, it's not. In fact, Michael goes behind brother Ralf.
Oh, but just a room for three.
Across. Oh.
It was Michael. It was certainly Ralf that hit Michael, that's for sure. Pushed him off. Michael kept his foot in it. Straight back on the track. A lot of sideways work, but of course drops him right back down the grid. Look at it.
Look at that.
My goodness, he really hit. He didn't just tap Michael's car, he beat the heck out of the front.
Yes, but because as they went into the corner, Ralf forced Fisichella onto the grass. Fisichella had nowhere to go. They collided, and that threw Ralf into Michael. There you see it again. Ralf rides over Fisichella's left rear, then bumps into brother Michael. These are brothers, and we knew at some stage there would be tears on the racetrack. Tears this weekend here at the Nürburgring. And look at the look on the face of disbelief. Ralf saying, what can I do? But Ralf, you and your teammate Fisichella, they were the ones at fault in that incident. So we see as we come up to the end of the 4th lap, on lap 5 of 67, Mika Häkkinen continues to lead from David Coulthard. We're going to take a break. We're back in a moment.
Speed Gear presents its latest catalog of officially licensed racing merchandise.
They steamrolled through the early season. Now they look to run over, around, and through Illinois. Then at 6, Arkansas looks to derail the Johnson to Green Touchdown Express when they wrestle the top-ranked Gators in the hostile waters of the swamp. Penn State, Illinois at 12:30, Arkansas, Florida at 6, Saturday on ESPN2.
Welcome back to the Nürburgring. There is your top 6. It remains unchanged, with the lead very much in the hands of Mika Häkkinen. We look at 3rd place, Jacques Villeneuve. But it's Mika Häkkinen here running some 2+ seconds ahead of teammate David Coulthard. Villeneuve in 3rd. Further down the field, Berger 13th, Meccano 14th, Salo 15th, Morbidelli, Verstappen, Michael Schumacher. He's in the pits and, of course, out of the race. The retirements are Michael Schumacher, brother Ralf Schumacher, Fisichella, and Ukio Katayama in the Minardi Heart.
Look at Villeneuve. He's through the chicane, knocking the car curbs as he goes through there. Of course, that's what I believe put Schumacher out, although he did have a severe blow on that first corner incident. But when he went across that chicane, for whatever reason, it did look like it was somebody very close to him on the inside. But of course, nonetheless, that put Schumacher out. Villeneuve, I believe, needs to keep off those curbs. He doesn't need to be pushing it to that limit. Obviously, he wants to do exceptionally well, but he wants to be smoother, keep off those curbs, because that's what will break the suspension on these cars. And nobody's done a race distance in that situation just yet. Look at Frentzen way back there with Berger. I mean, a long way back. Remember, Berger was actually on the sand dunes with Michael on that first corner. He went across the sand beside Michael, so that's why he's as far back as he is. Frentzen obviously had a miserable start, which he had earlier this season. Had a lousy start, and of course that's dropped him right the way back down the grid, but he did miss all the carnage, and that's vital.
Indeed it is. Well, there's two great battles taking place on racetrack. One is with Jan Magnussen 6th, Damon Hill 7th, Pedro Diniz 8th, and behind that a battle for 9th with Johnny Herbert, Olivier Panis on his return to Grand Prix racing, and Eddie Irvine. And then behind those two we got Frentzen and Berger. They're fighting to make up for the ground that was lost during that first lap shuffle that took place up at the chicane. Mika Häkkinen pours more pain on the rest of this field this afternoon. 1:20.437. Comes on to start, finish straight. Competes 7 laps, goes on to lap 8 of 67. Still a long afternoon's work in view for these two McLaren Mercedes drivers, but really totally in control so far. And for Villeneuve, well, he'll want to get as many points as he can, but it doesn't look to me at this point of the Grand Prix that Villeneuve's going to do very much about running at the pace of the two leaders. But there's the battle that we're watching now. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Herbert's sort of trying to find a way up past Pedro Diniz. And behind Herbert, you've got Olivier Panis, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Gerhard Berger. So let's watch this race as the young Dane really is beginning, Derek, at the end of the season to come to form.
This is, of course, where you need a very clean exit as they sweep out of the Dunlop curve up the hill. It's a very fast section up to 170 miles an hour as they work their way, weave their way uphill. Mika's still pouring on these quickest laps, but it's so vital to get out of these corners cleanly. It's a medium downforce setup, but you've got to get out of the corners absolutely immaculately to capitalize on that slight or medium downforce setup that you have on the car.
An interesting story about race leader Mika Häkkinen. Throughout his Grand Prix career, he's had a good luck charm. It's been a little model plastic tortoise. After the Austrian Grand Prix last weekend, the team, his mechanics, took the thing out of the car and they destroyed it. And that is a reason they believe why Mika Häkkinen now got pole position here at the Nürburgring for the Luxembourg Grand Prix, and why he's leading this race now by 4.3 seconds. Well, I don't know whether Mika Häkkinen is going to do 1 stop, 2 stops, but one thing is clear, he is just running away from teammate David Coulthard in 2nd place, who's being shadowed by championship contender, 1 point behind Michael Schumacher. But remember, Michael Schumacher, if you haven't caught the start of this afternoon's Grand Prix, he is out at the end of lap 1. A battle going into that Vidal chicane, Cashel chicane, contact between brother Ralph and Michael Schumacher. That was really the fault of Ralph Schumacher, in my opinion, and I think, Derek, you concur.
Well, I find it amazing. And the fact is that Mika pulled a whole full second out on David Coulthard on that last lap. I mean, that is a Dickens of a man early on in the race. I know there are marvels around where people have slid off the road, brought dirt on, which, of course, makes one a bit tentative. Maybe David got a little bit sideways, but he actually didn't lose anything to Villeneuve. So it must purely be Mika's sort of exceptional driving this afternoon. He really is doing a magnificent job. Of course, it's a long, long way to that victory yet, but it is lovely to see this young man sort of getting it all together after that hideous accident he had in Melbourne nearly 2 years ago. He's come back, and as we've all said, being drivers ourselves, to come back after an accident is a major thing to get back into the top group. And of course, you know, the confidence within the drivers, within himself and of course David Coulthard. They both know they got contracts for next year. They know the engine's working better. They know the chassis is working better. And of course, let's not forget, Adrian Newey left Williams and he came on full song with his team in August, working along with Mercedes. And of course, it's no secret to anybody, they actually have a Williams front nose or front wing section on this Mercedes now. And of course, that could be something to do with the fact that they're going so well.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but for the Gerhard Berger fans, he's battling away just outside the top 10. He's into 11th place. He got past Irvine and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. has just done the same thing to the Ulsman in the Ferrari. So we're going to take a quick commercial break as Hakkinen continues to dominate the Grand Prix of Luxembourg. We'll be back with you in a moment.
Canucks open ESPN2's NHL season against the Mighty Ducks and Teemu Selanne in the first NHL game ever played in Japan. Anaheim versus Vancouver, Friday at 11 on ESPN2.
Welcome back to the Nürburgring for the Luxembourg Grand Prix. And we've been watching Heinz-Harald Frentzen make progress. He's found his way past, at this point of track, Olivier Panis. But this, the battle for 6th place, still is intense. Got Dane leading the race, Jan Magnussen, Damon Hill, Pedro Denise, Johnny Herbert, now Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Olivier Panis, Gerhard Berger, and Eddie Irvine in the red Ferrari drops all the way back. Remember, Frentzen is the only German driver in this race remaining. Look at that, the pace of Mika Hakkinen. Every lap is a fastest race lap. On the 12th lap now of 67, he just pulls away. He's out of sight. David Coulthard is out of sight. A phenomenal pace by the Finn. Mika Hakkinen, 29 years old today. And this is his 94th Grand Prix. What a day for the Finn.
Look at this group here. Magnussen, it's a bit of deja vu here, rather like last week in Austria. Magnussen is no doubt holding this little group up, or this rather large group up. He's got the attentions of Damon Hill and Denise. Of course, there's Damon Hill receiving about $8 million a year, and Denise paying $10 million for the drive, and they're running nose to tail. Makes you wonder just if something's wrong with the picture. However, Magnussen doing a great job nonetheless, but of course he needs to actually be on the back of Barry Kello, his teammate, who is well in front of him, and he's not quite there, but he has shone a little bit more lately. Maybe he will retain his drive for next year. There's not too much coming out of the Stewart camp at the moment. And of course you've got Frentzen back there. He's about to tag on the back there and just see if he can do something about pulling up some positions which he really needs. I don't quite know what happened to him at the start. We didn't see much of him. Obviously he avoided all the melee. He's still in the race, as we said, but he does need to get a good result. I mean, he is German, it's his home crowd, and he tries to prove to everybody that he's just the equal of Michael Schumacher, but he has yet actually quite to do that.
Well, just looking at the Nürburgring track, it's getting very dirty indeed. A combination of rubber being shed off the tyres, but also drivers running very wide in the exit, using the curbs in the exit, and in doing so kicking up a lot of rubble and dirt, and that's falling onto the track, and drivers not particularly happy about it. Just talking about Jan Magnussen, Derek, yesterday we may recall that he had a major blow-up. Magnussen pulled the car over against pit wall, stepped out of the car, jumped across pit wall, but he forgot the fundamental thing to do, and that is to replace the steering wheel. Well, the FIA stewards didn't let him forget it, because they hauled him in along with the management of the Stewart Grand Prix team, and they slapped a $5,000 fine on the Dane for that momentary lapse of memory. And one has to say that was quite a hard call, but those are the regulations. The FIA runs Formula One with an iron fist, and believe me, there's no velvet glove over it.
Well, I don't know about, I agree with you, John. The problem is that, you know, if my car blew up, or one has the car blow up, it makes such a noise, such a fuss, steam, clouds of smoke, you're enveloped in this cloud, and the last thing on your mind is putting that wheel back. All you want to do is get out of the way and over the wall. And of course, by then it's too late. They wouldn't have had to let him back over the pit wall to put the wheel back on. In my opinion, the FIA needed their knuckles wrapped for leaving the car there on the edge of the track. Because if somebody else had come out of that Coca-Cola curve and maybe had something go wrong with the car and had careered across the track, they could have had a very nasty accident hitting the back of the parked car. So I don't think it's fair just to penalise Magnussen. I think the FIA or the organisers that this particular circuit should have also been talked to as well.
Well, I think I'm in sympathy with you, but the law is black and white, and it is administered in that form. But this, the battle for 4th place, Rubens Barrichello. Remember on that Bridgestone, the softer tyre of the option, the choices that Bridgestone have. Jean Alesi, now we know that one of the two Benettons is also on the Goodyear's optional tyre, that's the soft tyre. As they come into that Vidal chicane, an area that Jacques Villeneuve has been critical of because it's so difficult to get sight of where you turn in. It's a natural overtaking position on the racetrack, but if you're not quite confident about it, it's going to reflect on how you actually make your approach into the corner, and you're not going to take the risk, possibly, in getting it wrong and paying the penalty.
Well, of course, those curbs really are so high at that particular point. Of course, now we know they're actually going through the Castrolesco, but You can see the marbles all over the road there. Shows that if you do have to take the wrong line, you know, there is a price to pay for that. John Alesi really giving Barrichello a lot of attention. But of course, catching up, staying with somebody, but overtaking is something quite different. And I think Alesi will be making a move at some point, but let's not forget, he knows what the gap is to the people behind. It's a long way back to this little group, so he can afford to wait. Awful thing to say, maybe to a pit stop, and maybe get the advantage at a pit stop and get out ahead, which would make all the difference, save him taking a chance of falling off the road.
Well, I think it's a great effort by the Stewart Grand Prix team in its first year of racing, and also credit to Ford and Cosworth, who've worked really hard, not just to find performance, but reliability. And this Ford Step 8 engine, that's what's being used by Magnussen and Barrichello, certainly matching power for power with the Renault V10 in the back of Alesi's Benetton. But look at this line of cars, all lining up behind Jan Magnussen in 6th, Damon Hill 7th, Denise 8th. We look down and look at Johnny Herbert 9th, Frentzen 10th, Panis 11th, Berger 12th. So this line of cars really unable to do very much about the one in front. So in that case, we're going to take a quick break. We'll join us back here in a moment.
Your heart. Imagine how the drivers feel. Watch Alex Zanardi, the 1997 PPG Cup champion, at the Kart World Series 500. Sunday night, September 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7.
Very sad for them. These engines were modified and sent during the week up for this race weekend, assuming that Mugen Honda had actually fixed it. But obviously, there is still something a little bit astray in that engine.
So we've actually got 6 cars out, Michael Schumacher and Ralph Schumacher, Fisichella, Katayama, Tarsha Marquez, so 2 Jordans and 2 Minardis, and now Shinji Nakano makes it 6. And, well, we know that the Mugen Honda team, look at the smoke up round at that's up at the RTL curve, coming into Bit Curve. Mugen Honda company shipped in brand new modified engines on Saturday morning, and they were installed for qualifying and for the race. Well, they didn't modify those motors enough. And for Jordan Grand Prix, who were reassured earlier this week by the Japanese engineers, no problem, idiot, no problem. Well, maybe the problem is still a little problem. 18 laps down. There's Jacques Villeneuve in 3rd place, now 13.3 seconds. Derek, I don't think that Jacques Villeneuve really is under too much pressure to try and improve position simply by driving hard at this part of the race. He's running very close to David Coulthard, who's just a little over 1 second behind the Scotsman, but of course a long way behind race leader. So it's quite a long way to go yet in this race. We're only in lap 19 of 67. A great deal can happen, but just watch up through these S's. Watching Jacques Villeneuve there, you think the only thing missing is his girlfriend alongside him, out enjoying a lovely Sunday afternoon drive in the Eifel Mountains in West Germany, just south of the beautiful city of Cologne. Well, I'm sure that's not in Jacques' mind really this afternoon. He's looking for maximum points, and he's probably going to wait and see what happens as we get deeper into this race. 19 laps down, but still that domination from Mika Häkkinen. He was pole winner, 29th birthday today. The team got rid of that good luck tortoise charm. They trashed that, and all of a sudden Häkkinen's luck to date seems to have changed dramatically.
I'm sure Jacques Villeneuve is sort of caught up in this a little bit. He's a racer, he wants to win, but obviously he wants to win the race as well as the championship, and it must be quite difficult for him to sort of control his emotions, to hold himself back from going absolutely looning and overtaking David Coulthard, thinking about, but man, I haven't got to worry about those World Championship points. They're in the bag at the moment as far as 3rd place is concerned, but wouldn't he like to pick up 10 rather than 5?
Well, this is the battle for 6th, and Jan Magnussen now getting a gap, but there we're looking at the Benetton team. They're preparing, that must be for one of those 2 cars that opted to run on the, what I would call, optional or softer tyre. But Damon Hill
It'll be difficult to know just who's on that softer tire because, in fact, Berger qualified well ahead of Alesi. And you'd think Berger would be going in for the tyre change.
Well, Benetton's been overtaken by Damon Hill. So Damon Hill's got past John Alesi. It's Alesi who must be in problems. And we expect Alesi to be the first into the pits. Alesi had been challenging Barrichello for 4th place. He's dropped back. Hill's now taken that place away from Jean Alesi in 5th. So it's...
Well, I don't know,
getting confused, but maybe it's...
I think Berger's worked his way up. I think that's what's happened. Berger is working his way up the field. Because, you know, he got involved in the Schumacher incident across the sand dunes. He's working his way up, and this obviously is Alesi going in the pits now. He is the one that we did exactly think that was on the softer tyres. Obviously, if you start further back, it's worth giving it a gamble and having a go on the softer tyres. He's going out on sticker tyres. Again, they have to be soft tyres. They're the ones that he qualified on.
It's a good job by the Benetton team. 9.5 seconds. So 20 laps in the book as we see the field stream through, and this is 7th through to 11th place. John Alesi rejoins the field just ahead of Gianni Morbidelli in the Sauber Petronas. So an early stop in relative terms for the first of the two Benettons. So after 20 laps, the lead still being dominated by Hakkinen with Coulthard 2nd, Villeneuve 3rd, Barrichello, Magnussen 4th and 5th, Damon Hill now up into 6th place.
Of course, I bet Alesi is cursing the fact that he actually ran on the softer tyres, because after his good fortune at the start when he ended up being in that top group, he's now behind this little mob, and there's going to be a heck of a job for him to get by. As we know, he can run through the speed. Hello, somebody looked like they're slowing down a tad there. They certainly pulled back quickly across the track to get the line for the next corner, but looked like he might have lost a bit of time there.
So we're looking at cars not running: Nakano, Michael Schumacher, Tarso Marquez, Yukio Katayama, Fisichella and Ralf Schumacher. Those are the 6 cars out of the 22 that started, but a great pass by Frentzen up into that chicane. A superb pass by the German. Takes position away from Pedro Diniz. Olivier Panis tries to sneak through as well as they come through Coca-Cola curve, but there's no way.
Berger.
Gerhard Berger in the second of the Benettons into the pits. Did both Bergers start on that soft tire, Derek?
Well, we weren't led to believe they had, and surely we knew what they did yesterday. They supposedly one hard and one on soft.
Fantastic stop by the Benetton team. The clock stopped slightly before the car moved, but nonetheless, excellent work by the Benetton team for Gerhard Berger. So, as we catch our breath, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Gerhard Berger comes back out on track. We'll be back with you here in Nürburgring at the Luxembourg Grand Prix in a moment.
If you're a real car enthusiast, you should be reading Auto Week every week. For true car lovers, once a month is not enough.
Auto Week has the latest news because it's a weekly. You can stay up on top of everything.
All the new models, concept cars, SUVs, even collector cars are in Auto Week every week.
Auto Week will give you information on new models that really isn't available anywhere else.
All the racing news and analysis you could ever want when it's still hot.
I'm into going racing with my buddies, and Auto Week gives us information to talk about before it's old news. Anything with wheels, Auto Week has.
Call 1-800-232-1502 for 52 weeks of Auto Week and get these 3 special issues free. Places, the ultimate shopping guide, and our complete racing fan guide with track maps, driver profiles, everything. All for just $24.95. Call 1-800-232-1502 now for Auto Week.
If you only had time for one car magazine, Auto Week would be the one to read.
Call now.
RPM tonight at 8, only on ESPN2.
Mika Salo into the pits, but Eddie Irvine out of the race. The remaining Ferrari, Eddie Irvine, stops lap 23. Disastrous day for the Scuderia Ferrari here in Germany. Remember, Michael Schumacher out of the race at the end of the first lap. Collision with brother Ralph down at the bottom of the circle. In fact, at the Castro Les in the first corner. So Eddie Irvine retires at the bottom of the circuit, down at the Dunlop curve. And, well, that shamrock on the back of Irvine's helmet has not brought him any luck here this afternoon.
Of course, think about the constructors' points. Ferrari looked so good a few races ago, but they're really falling behind now. They've fall end behind, and they're a long way off the pace as far as getting that Constructors' Championship. And of course, Schumacher dropping well out of the clutches of Villeneuve at this point.
12.1 seconds. There's the gap between leader Häkkinen and teammate Coulthard in second. And Häkkinen has just driven away from the field, and he's done it so much within himself. Gianni Morbidelli in the second Sauber, in for his first service of the afternoon. Good stop by the Sauber boys. A little bit hesitant getting away, Gianni, but still a good time. Top six currently, still Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, Jacques Villeneuve in third, Barrichello, Magnussen fourth and fifth, and Damon Hill in sixth place. And he's being shadowed once again by that red drive, but a very impressive young man, Pedro Diniz, in the second of the two Arrows Yamahas. And of course, Diniz will be in that team next year. New teammate will be Mika Salo, and word has been handed down to Mika Salo, and that is, do not underestimate Pedro Diniz. He has come on leaps and bounds throughout the 97 season, and in fact at times has made teammate Damon Hill look a little bit second-rate, and that's from the team.
Of course, Häkkinen here is about to start lapping this pair sort of towards the back of the field, and that could make a little bit different for him. Let's hope they look in their mirrors. Let's hope they're watching the flags. Very difficult to be, when you're focused on driving, be focused also on those flags and just to pick up where the guy is behind. But Mika's zooming up here as they brace themselves. The chicane pulls over, lets him through. Good move there. Thank you very much, says Mika. And goes on his merry way.
Yes, very good use of the mirrors, observation of the flags around the circuit. And that's the kind of driving, the professionalism you expect to see from Grand Prix drivers. We don't see it all the time. As we now go 25 laps down, Mika Häkkinen put that lap on Johnny Herbert. Herbert, of course, one of the very early, in fact, I think the first of the cars to stop for fuel and tyres. The gap down to 10.5 seconds, but that really was due to the little bit of time lost when Häkkinen held back. He wanted to be certain that Johnny Herbert was going to let him through. He then got the indication he went through. Jacques Villeneuve running now just 2.7 seconds behind in third place. And then we see the Canadian, and really a very steady race. That's all one can say about Jacques Villeneuve's Grand Prix to date. The principal thing being that he got out of all the trouble. He certainly was squeezed going into this Castrolès, but he stayed out of trouble. Kept third place on the exit. Rubens Barrichello and Jan Magnussen battling away fourth and fifth. Damon Hill really now putting pressure. There you see Damon Hill, that familiar London Rowing Club colours on that very famous helmet that his father, the colours that his father carried during his great Grand Prix career with 2 World Championships. Damon picked up those colours and himself a member of that London Rowing Club. Doesn't row very much these days because he lives in Dublin.
That's a long gap between Villeneuve and Frenzen, one has to say. A long gap, 38 seconds. But these guys, they're putting a lot of pressure on Magnussen. Hill has been there a long time, but aren't those Bridgestone tyres doing well this weekend?
Well, these are the cars out. Eddie Irvine joins a list that's growing quite considerably. So as we watch them come through that final Coca-Cola corner to complete the 26th lap of 767, we're going to take a commercial break. Ring, 27 laps down. Mika Häkkinen comes in, the race leader on lap 28. Will complete lap 28 in the pit lane. Comes in for what will be, we think, his one and only stop. But McLaren, they're so good on strategy. They've got so much fuel tank capacity, flexibility. Let's watch the clock on the screen. That will tell us if they're going to do one stop or possibly go for a short second. Jacques Villeneuve also in the pit lane. Villeneuve comes in, Häkkinen goes out. That was a short stop, Derek. I think that Häkkinen will make a second visit to the pit lane later in this race. So 27.5 total in and out amount of time for Häkkinen. Villeneuve now out. Longer stop for the Williams team. They put more fuel in. Mika Häkkinen back out. Villeneuve makes his way a slow, long way down the pit lane. Gets off the limiter, accelerates back out onto track. 28.8 for the Canadian. 1.3 seconds slower than the McLaren did for Mika Häkkinen.
Because it doesn't always follow just because he put less fuel in that in fact he is going to come in for another stop. It could be that he had more to start with. He was at the front of the field, so therefore there was an possibility that with a clean track he'd get away and the heavy tanks wouldn't affect him so much because he wouldn't be dicing, he wouldn't be outbraking people, he had a clear road. That could be the strategy. We'll find out later on.
Well, that's what makes Formula One such an intriguing sport. The secrets that are kept by these teams are absolute. They will not divulge anything, except if you're French. And in one race a year ago, as we look down at the order there, Coulthard, Häkkinen, Villeneuve, Barrichello, Magnussen, Hill. Barrichello, Magnussen, Hill yet to make pit stops. Damon Hill applying a lot of pressure to the back of Magnussen. So Coulthard leads after 29 laps. Let's see where Mika Häkkinen is. He is 9 seconds back.
But Coulthard also,
Jacques
he has to
Villeneuve.
pit as well, so let's not forget that.
There's Bridgestone, we're waiting to see them make their pit stops. Those, of course, tyres on the Arrows and on the Stewarts. Barrichello makes it to 4th. Wait now for 5th and 6th pace to come across the line. That was a battle going on. Again, look at the amount of gravel on the track. Magnussen and Hill, and they're still together. That was a battle that's been going on for a number of laps. Damon Hill, we have seen him stick the nose of the Arrows out, but never really get alongside. The young Dane there is that battle that's been going on now for quite some time. Frentzen also tagged onto the back of Damon Hill, and all the momentum that Frentzen built up, well, he's not been able to
this is good
maintain
practice
it.
for everyone.
We just heard that Irvine's failure was an engine failure, so that was that, as far as they're concerned, miserable for them.
We're back now to the women, and we've got Harrison, Gilfillan.
So Damon
and
Hill in 6th place, Frentzen 3/4 of a second behind in 7th, and Frentzen we expect to come into the pits this time for his stop. The German really trying to get his way up into the points and fulfill his expectations of the second German Grand Prix of the year. Of course, it is the Luxembourg Grand Prix. Luxembourg, the Grand Duchy, some 30 miles west of this magnificent Eifel mountain range in western Germany. Breaks down into the chicane. And into the pits. Yes, Frentzen in. Comes in on lap 30. So almost midway through this Grand Prix, Frentzen makes it down. Good work by the Williams team. McLaren all laid out now for David Coulthard. David Coulthard still leads this afternoon's Grand Prix, but yet to make that one stop. So after 30 laps, Coulthard leads from Mika Häkkinen, Jacques Villeneuve, Barrichello, Magnussen, and still Damon Hill. That's the top 6. So David Coulthard, the race leader, a temporary leader after Mika Häkkinen made his stop. So Coulthard will fall back in line, and he slides into the McLaren garage. You can hear the front tire had locked up as he turned in. Pit lane is smooth. There is race leader now once again. Mika Häkkinen leads. David Coulthard accelerates down pit lane up to 120 kilometers per hour, 70 miles an hour. Coulthard falls back in line behind Ruben Barrichello, we think, but ahead of Jan Magnussen. So it's Häkkinen, Villeneuve, Barrichello, David Coulthard. Remember, neither Stuart Ford or Damon Hill has yet visited the pit lane this afternoon.
But of course that doesn't necessarily mean that the strategy of the Bridgestone shod tyres is actually working, because the idea was to stay out and capitalise on it when the Goodyear runners went in, but they haven't really gained anything from it at all because they're dropped back so far. But the race is not over yet.
David Coulthard's pit stop has been the quickest so far this afternoon, a total of 26.1 seconds. And of course, the deeper you go into a Grand Prix, the less fuel you need to put into the tank. So that aspect of Grand Prix racing is very much an art, and it's an art that has to be practiced. McLaren are good at it.
Of course, that's just what David wanted, was a quick stop like that. I mean, that is exceptionally quick. To get out there and Oh, it's so slow in that chicane, doesn't it? But to get out there, and of course that just gives him an extra bit of a break over Jacques Villeneuve, and of course that's still Jacques sort of stop, losing about a second on his stop over Coulthard, has put him behind the car here, I think, of looks like one of the Tyrrells, and he, of course, is in his tow. I know he's much quicker, but he's still got to get by him. So it's not that easy thing to do it. Here we go. Both of the Williams have been behind Tyrrells, but of course they do have superior power and superior handling.
Well, as Villeneuve makes his way past Verstappen, we're going to take a quick commercial. We'll be back with you very shortly here at the Grand Prix of Luxembourg at the Nürburgring in Germany.
Your heart pounds. Your head rings. Your palms sweat. Imagine how the drivers feel. CART Championship Auto Racing Teams. Feel the speed.
Welcome back to the Luxembourg Grand Prix. Heinz-Harald Frentzen makes room and battles his way back up through the field. Frentzen, of course, got caught up in that first corner. Schmozzle, Derek uses that word often, and it means confusion. Lost 10 places, has worked hard all afternoon to find position on track, but this man, Mika Häkkinen, after 34 laps, continues the domination we've seen from him, from Mercedes-Benz V10 power, from the McLaren chassis, and now beginning to really benefit from the contribution made by Adrian Newey, late of the Williams team. He didn't join the team officially till the 1st of August. He's worked hard. He's made changes around the front of that McLaren, most notably around the aerodynamics of the front wing, and how that air then flows from the front wing around the side pods, around the back of the car and the rear wing. Of course, the diffuser underneath plays that vital role. Adrian Newey's role is beginning to be felt by the competitors here in Nürburgring. 34 laps down, Häkkinen, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Barrichello, Magnussen, Hill. Hill passes Magnussen, does he? No, he'd got up almost alongside, but the Dane, an ex-world karting champion, he manages to get on the brakes so late, denies Hill at 5th place. Frustration for Damon Hill here in the Nürburgring. And from a man, he's only a kid, he's a pup, Jan Magnussen. 24 years of age, Damon Hill 37. Well, is the kid teaching the master? Good fun to watch, Derek.
God, you do ramble on, Watty, I must admit, about these young pups. Nevertheless, Damon Hill, I think, should have been much more positive over his move, trying to get by Jan Magnussen. Obviously, he doesn't have the experience of Damon. Nonetheless, it was a good move by Magnussen to chop him out. He doesn't seem to take such an extremely tight line as he goes into the corners. You can see there, Damon takes a much more classic line through the corners. Now, Damon's got to have a look at him. He gets some drag off him, gets some slipstream, and try and get in coming up into the chicane. Easier said than done.
Well, Damon,
it looks, he just doesn't use all the road. Magnussen is like 3 foot in. He makes you wonder just how good the car really is if it was used to its limits. Magnussen doesn't go out to the extreme on the entry to the corner. He doesn't get on the curbs on the exit. But nevertheless, he's staying in front of Damon. Remember, his tyres might be getting a little bit tired by now. Here we have another little move going on here. Let's just see what happens as they come up to the first turn.
Well, Damon Hill once again looking to find a way past the Dane, but this time he put the nose out, had a look, but said, no, I'm not close enough. And Jan Magnussen gaining experience and really, of course, the confidence factor that was so lacking in his early season, up even until as late as the Austrian Grand Prix. It was in Austria 1 week ago that Jan Magnussen seemed to find the key to being a successful Grand Prix driver, and it may be this drive along with his race in Austria last week that will see his future secure with the Stewart Ford team for 1998. That's one seat still that remains unconfirmed, but I think Jackie Stewart really would like to keep the driver lineup a blend of experience of Brazilian Barrichello and youth and speed from Dane Magnussen. So I think Jackie Stewart's mind is being made up literally as we watch this afternoon's Grand Prix.
So you just watch Magnussen. Hill's right out on that line turning in the chicane. Magnussen isn't. Magnussen's car seems to be sliding somewhat. But anyway, Hill's going in the pits, so he was just bothering Dane. He was just bothering him, making him move around a bit, hoping to unnerve him, but Damon's in for a pit stop. So they're going to do a little one-stopper and just see how long they take.
I think, Derek, one of the problems that Damon has is that his reputation as an overtaker isn't exactly the greatest in Formula One. And even a young guy like Magnussen can sort of fool around with Damon because they're confident he's not going to do something that is irrational. And he stalled! The world champion has stalled in the pit lane. And that just compounds the situation. You can see, look at the frustration in his face. The team rush round with the start-up bottles. They plug it in. Can they get the motor fired up? It could be that there was a little bit, I think, in fact, in fairness to Damon Hill, the problem is a clutch problem. You can see that he's got a problem. He can't actually get the thing engaged in gear. He's got it and he just slams it into gear, lays two big darkies down as he accelerates out of the pit lane, gets back in the race, but that is the end of an afternoon's work in real terms for the reigning world champion.
Yeah, that was most unfortunate. Makes you wonder whether there was also a problem with the clutch. They did have the car up on the jacks to start it, which means that they were worried about the wheels turning when, of course, and otherwise they could try and start it with it in gear. Maybe he couldn't get a neutral, so maybe he wasn't quite in the right gear when he tried to start. We'll maybe find out afterwards, but these cars aren't idiot-proof. Things do go wrong, and of course this electronic system they have for gear selection can be cause for problems.
Well, that certainly was very frustrating for Hill and for the Arrows team. It took a total of 66 seconds. I mean, it was like 66 years for Damon Hill sitting in that car, who closed his eyes in frustration. So this has all been going on. Fourth place, Rubens Barrichello has made it in for his one stop of the afternoon as we come back to Damon Hill, back out on track after that enormously long stop. Villeneuve runs very wide on the exit of the pit curve. In third place, still running very, very comfortably, but not showing any signs of making inroads into the lead positions of those two McLaren Mercedes here this afternoon. And it looks as if, I would say, Villeneuve is resigned to taking 4 points, which at the end of this Grand Prix this afternoon would see him lead the championship, as you predicted, Derek, by 3 points.
To me, he doesn't look very resigned, John. He's all over the curbs and all over the dirt. To me, he's trying like crazy to get up there and make some inroads so he perhaps can pick up a second place. But I must admit, he isn't doing much about it at the moment, but he's trying very, very hard indeed.
On board with Bennis. Into Coca-Cola curve, back onto pit straight. We're going to take short commercial break, so stay with us. We'll be back at the Nürburgring very shortly.
Let Grand Prix Tours take you in.
That wheel, you saw Pedro Diniz accelerate and Magnussen creeps around the racetrack. Something has gone wrong there, Derek.
It almost seemed like maybe he had the wrong gear. He just couldn't get a gear as he came out the pits, and therefore he came out slowly. He's still cruising around. He's not stopped, but he might be the gear selection's giving him problems.
Well, something dramatically has happened to the Dane, who was running on a very, very fine 5th place, battling with world champion Damon Hill and not having any nonsense whatsoever from the world champion. Came out the pit lane, then Pedro Diniz, who was behind, accelerated past, and well, that was the story. David Coulthard in a firm 2nd place, running behind race leader and teammate Jan Magnussen, as we at last see Olivier Panis come in. The Bridgestone cars have gone so deep into the second part of this race. We were wondering, are they ever going to stop? Well, considering how deep they've gone into the second half of the race, they took quite a lot of fuel on board. 9.6 seconds is not a quick stop. Oh, what an unpleasant way to come back out just ahead of race leader Olivier Panis in his return to Grand Prix racing. Stays on the racing line. Mika Häkkinen, race leader, has to get off the line. Gets dirt, dust. Gianni Morbidelli in for the 2nd time this afternoon. The Italian and the Sauber team really struggled here all weekend. They couldn't find the balance. They made radical changes. There is Magnussen back in. So the Dane, who was so impressive up until that pit stop, has crept back in. There again, look at that. Gearbox clutch trouble for Morbidelli. The wheels spinning. He gets it away, it chugs out. Magnussen's race is over. His car's going to be backed up into the garage. Jos Verstappen, the Dane, in for the second time. Jos Verstappen, we think, got a private pilot's license for the effort he made in qualifying over that curb in the chicane. He must have been about 4 feet high, and he stalled it as well. No, he's not. He's managed to keep it running, but it looked like a stall. So Verstappen looking also for drive for 98. Probably will stay with the Tyrrell team, but needs to pick up. I think some of the drives that he's put in this year have not been that impressive. Tyrrell may not wish to keep it. Mika Häkkinen continues to lead after 42 laps. David Coulthard runs second, Jacques Villeneuve third. We wait to see confirmation, fourth, fifth and sixth with those pit stops of the Bridgestone runners. There is a blow up. Somebody is in trouble. Down on the pit lane, it's David Coulthard in second place. Coulthard, his engine has erupted. David Coulthard creeps down alongside the pit barrier. Now that is worrying indeed for the McLaren team. If it can happen to Coulthard, will it happen to Häkkinen? So David Coulthard having a superb run this afternoon in second place, comes out of Coca-Cola curve. There you see a major blow up the right bank of that V10 engine. Let's go big time. And such is the pace of development in Formula One engines. Not only have McLaren or Mercedes-Benz developed this engine to the peak it's currently at, they've got a brand new engine on the computer for 1998. So the Ilmore Engineering Company in England, who build the engines for Mercedes, have got a few problems to solve with the current engine, Derek.
Of course, that puts Jacques Villeneuve up to second. Some very nice points to Jacques, just what he wants. Let's just hope that same awful situation doesn't befall Mika Häkkinen. He just doesn't need that. Like, remember, on the leading the Austrian Grand Prix a week ago, out there in front, what did he have a problem?
Johnny Herbert leaves for the second time. And of course, when an engine blows like that, the team are pretty much aware of it, all the telemetry that's in the pits. And Mika Häkkinen is out! Race leader Mika Häkkinen has retired 1 lap after teammate David Coulthard. And the bad luck that has been a part of Mika Häkkinen's Grand Prix career. And Norbert Haug, the Mercedes-Benz director of motorsport, looks in utter disbelief. Alongside him, Jürgen Hubert, executive in charge of passenger car development, sits, and the silence has descended across. Well, that actually is David Coulthard.
Well, there's Coulthard right beside Häkkinen. I mean, they've blown up in the same place to within a few feet of each other. That is unbelievable. There'll be some questions asked at boardroom level tomorrow morning at Mercedes. It's all very well harping on about it. My goodness me, there's a move just now. Look, you can just see Häkkinen pulling over. I think there's Häkkinen there, pulling over just in exactly the same place as David Coulthard. I'd hate to be at that board meeting tomorrow morning asking questions. Why did it all go wrong? Because that's what they're in there for, is good PR, not bad PR. And this is the one race they needed to do well in, and it's tragic more than anything for Mika Häkkinen.
Well, absolute look of disc and Norbert Haug. And that is Rubens Barrichello. Rubens Barrichello running in third place, and Barrichello is out. So Jacques Villeneuve leads the race. We're not certain, we think Jean Alesi may well have crept into second place, but all of a sudden, this stay of 3 laps, we've seen Coulthard out of second, Häkkinen out of the lead, Rubens Barrichello out of third place. Now Villeneuve leading this race. He raises his hand to signal to Damon Hill, get out of my way, Damon.
I think it's Denise, actually.
It is.
Oh, you're right,
Damon
John.
Hill.
I'm so sorry.
Those familiar London Rowing Club colours. There is Barrichello's car on the outside of that Valvoline curve. The precarious position. Let's hope that Barrichello remembered to put his steering wheel on. Remember, Magnussen didn't do it. He got fined. But Damon Hill, well, he seems totally unconcerned that Jacques Villeneuve, who is leading this Grand Prix, wants past. Well, nick your own way past, sunshine. Jean Alesi comes in for the second time. So it is absolutely confusion here at the Nürburgring. All we can confirm is that Jacques Villeneuve has taken the lead, not because he overtook on the track, but because both McLaren and Mercedes engines blew up within 1 lap of one another, a mirror of what we saw last weekend in Austria when both the Prost Mugen Hondas did the same thing. So we're going to take a quick break, we're going to catch our breath, and join us back at the Nürburgring in a moment.
They say so. Obviously an outstandingly good controlled drive by Jacques. He's not there yet, I know that, But of course, when you're going to be world champion or when you're going to win a race, my goodness, you need a lot of luck. And right now, the luck is playing into his hands. Schumacher out, of course, no points at all. And Jacques collecting a full 10. So that is putting him way, way ahead of Michael with only 2 races to go.
Jacques Villeneuve makes his way through the chicane. That's just before the final corner. 47 laps down with 67 lap race, so 20 to go. And that is Frentzen into the pits. Heinz-Harald Frentzen running in second place, makes his second visit. Slows down, you hear the engine as the speed limit button comes in, slithers into the stop. So Frentzen in for the second and final time. Second stop for the German. Not a brilliant stop considering he didn't have to take too much fuel on board for those final 20 laps. Comes out, but there we see it looks like Mikasalo or Verstappen ahead of the Benetton.
It's interesting actually that he should come in at that point because he did actually pit 2 laps sooner, 2 laps later than Villeneuve on the first stop. Makes you wonder, maybe he had a little problem with the tyres, a locking up problem. He has been carving his way through the field. And he asked if he could come in as early as humanly possible just to change. Look at this, Paul Mika Hakkinen, look at his face. 29th birthday, so much for his good luck charm that they have burnt at the stake. Very, very sad that that should happen, but poor old Mika, he must wonder when he's going to win a Grand Prix.
Well, he can certainly hold his head high this weekend because he has done a superb job for his team. But Verstappen being wicked to Jean Alesi and really for no purpose whatsoever. Jean Alesi squeezes by, forces the Dutchman wide, takes the, well, not even a pass, it's just overtaking for a lap down. Jos Verstappen beginning to get a reputation as being, let's say, a little bit hard when it comes to being overtaken for laps rather than simply for position. But there the battle's second, third and fourth. You've got Frentzen in third, Gerhard Berger in fourth. So covered by little more than 3 seconds, that second, third and fourth places.
It's something like Verstappen we call a mobile chicane. It's not very fair because the guy is actually pretty talented, but he has got this reputation at the moment. Very nice little maneuver there. Slips by Verstappen. Got the 2 Benetton. Oh dear, dear, dear. Did you see what Verstappen did to Berger as Berger tried to go by then? That wasn't good at all. Villeneuve, of course, in for his pit stop.
Villeneuve comes in for the final time. So let's see what the Williams guys can do. There's no rush. They've just got to get in easy, clean. Drops the car down. Excellent work by the guys from Wantage in Oxfordshire. That's the Williams engineers, mechanics. Jacques Villeneuve trundles down at 70 miles an hour, crosses the line at the exit of the pit lane now. 3rd, 4th gears. Down into that Castrol-S, the scene of all that carnage at the start of the Grand Prix. That's what took out World Championship leader Michael Schumacher. Taken out, I have to say, by younger brother Ralph. Giancarlo Fisichella was also involved. Fisichella really forced onto the grass. That caused the collision between Fisichella and Ralph Schumacher, which in turn bumped into brother Michael. And I think there may be a few words said between elder and younger sibling here this weekend. Villeneuve continues to lead from Jean Alesi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third. We're going to take a quick break as we look at our top 6.
Your heart pounds. Your head rings. Your palms sweat. Imagine how the drivers feel. Watch Alex Zanardi, the 1997 PPG Cup champion, at the Kart World Series 500. Sunday night, September 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central on ESPN. Kart Championship Auto Racing Teams. Feel the speed.
If you like motorsports, you'll love Racer Magazine. For less than $2 an issue, you get the best motorsports monthly in America. And
Pedro Denise and the Arrows Yamaha, and returnee to Formula One Olivier Panis, who really is getting the feel of being a Grand Prix driver once again. Looks, well, there was no chance that time, Olivier, but certainly you're making Pedro Denise use his mirrors. Jacques Villeneuve, of course, continues in the lead, a dominant 33-second lead, ahead of Jean Alesi in second place, who's got a battling Heinz-Harald Frentzen all over Berger, who's slipstreaming off Frentzen in fourth.
Oh, look, Penny has to go down the inside. In fact, Diniz did sort of hang there waiting for him. Look at the tyre marks. Put some rubber down as he goes in there through the bit curve. And let's see if Penny can capitalise on this coming up to the chicane. No, he's just a bit too far back. I must admit, the power of that Yamaha engine, but Penny catches up on the latter part of braking, but the power of that Yamaha engine certainly does go.
Well, interesting, Derek, for an engine that was meant to be basically a no-hoper, the Yamaha engine is a great deal better than the pundits have been saying. And the Mugen Honda engine, which is considered to be one of the finest in Formula One, well, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of difference. But look at this battle for second place. Jean Alesi in second, Frentzen right behind him in third, but back to this fifth and sixth place battle. Pedro Diniz, the young Brazilian, doing a superb job for the Arrows team and quite rightly retained by the team. Olivier Panis on his return since that accident in Canada back in the middle of June, doing a very good job for the Prost team. And one would like to see what the outcome of these two battles is going to be. Will Frentzen get Alesi? Will Penny get past?
Well, I think that Penny will get by, but I don't think that it's going to be so easy behind Frentzen, I must admit. He's got a real hardened campaigner, Jean Alesi, in front of him. Jean would dearly love to have a good position, having had such a miserable qualifying session. Let's just ride now. Puff of smoke off the brakes, the tyre, should I say. Jean Alesi as he comes in there.
Derek, keep an eye on the wily old Austrian. Gerhard Berger, 38 years of age, the oldest man in Formula One. A man who does not have a drive for 1998, rumoured to be in conversation with BMW, who are going to come into Formula One as the official supplier of engines to the Williams team in the year 2000. He might be a test driver for the BMW company when they get their V10 engine, the definitive engine. They do actually have engines down in Munich. They've been building engines over the last year or so, but for the year 2000, what they will produce, I'm certain, will be very special indeed.
There's even talk about them building a sports car along with the Williams team for GT racing. Oh, one of the Verstappen's out. Well, that's one of the slower cars out of the way, and I don't think too many of the drivers will be disappointed about that, apart from, of course, Verstappen himself. But getting back to the sports car they're building, and talk about even Gerhard Berger driving that at Le Mans next year.
Well, Derek, you're still a young man. Could you be tempted by BMW? You had a contract, or you used to race BMWs years ago.
I'm still too old.
I think you didn't say that quite loudly enough. Jacques Villeneuve comfortably in the lead, some 33 seconds ahead of the battle taking place for second place with Jean Alesi, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Gerhard Berger making it into a three-way battle. There it is. They come down into the Castrol S. So the gap is in fact closing. Alesi has taken some 4 seconds. And this is no due to the traffic around the circuit. Villeneuve, of course, now driving cautiously. He doesn't need to drive hard. He's just got to bring his Williams Renault home. It doesn't matter whether it's 20 seconds, 1 second, as long as he's first across the line.
There you are. That's the perfect line coming through the Dunlop curve there at the bottom.
Well, after that perfect line, we're going to take a perfect break. We'll be back with you here in Germany in a moment.
Something big has happened. Introducing 10 cents a minute collect calling from 1-800-COLLECT. 10 cents a minute for collect calls every evening and all weekend long. From 1-800-COLLECT. Who else?
Want to make painting easier? Change your roller to a Wagner cordless power roller. There's less mess, less hassle, and less bending over. So you can paint every room in your house in almost half the time. Get the Wagner Power Roller for fast, professional results.
Which of these tires will stop faster? Actually, they stopped about the same. In almost any test you can think of, Toyo tires stand up against the best in the world.
Saturday, college football's elite take the field on ESPN2. At 12:30, Coach Paterno had his second-ranked Nittany Lions hitting on all cylinders as they steamrolled through the early season. Now they look to run over, around, and through Illinois. Then at 6, Arkansas looks to derail the Johnson to Green Touchdown Express when they wrestle the top-ranked Gators in the hostile waters of the swamp. Penn State, Illinois at 12:30, Arkansas, Florida at 6, Saturday on ESPN2.
Welcome back to the Nürburgring. We've got some 12 retirements here this afternoon. More cars stopped than are running, so we've got 12 laps of this afternoon's Grand Prix remaining. Still dominated by Jacques Villeneuve. Remember the two McLaren Mercedes-Benz that were running away with this afternoon's Luxembourg Grand Prix. They retired within a lap of one another. Both had engine failures, so after 55 laps, we're on lap 56. Villeneuve, Alesi, Frenzenberger. Second through fourth is covered by, there it is, I don't have to tell you. Excellent drive by Denise in fifth, Panis in sixth. If Pedro Denise happens to finish, as we watch him coming into the Castroless, if he finishes fifth, this is his best Grand Prix result. In 96, he had a couple of sixth places, but being hounded all the way by Olivier Panis on his return.
Panis has got some understeer.
I wonder, Derek, also, is he maybe feeling a little bit fatigued at this stage in the Grand Prix? One thing testing, a different thing doing a drive at this level, at this pressure.
Well, you certainly would think he would be. There's a different pressure to going testing. You can do a Grand Prix distance testing. There's a different pressure when you go racing. There's the physical side and there's the mental side. He's having a look down the inside of Denise, but no way at the moment. There's certainly a lot more pressure in the event, but of course adrenaline is raging harder here.
Both drivers doing a very, very good job indeed, but I have to say I'm extremely impressed by Denise. He's come along enormously since he joined the TWR team. He has on occasion overshadowed his more illustrious world champion teammate, and he's driving under extreme pressure, Derek, yet he's doing a very controlled job.
Yeah, I think he's doing an excellent job to hold off Penny, who's a very hot, a real top driver. Denise is getting himself in the same bracket. Of course, if he does happen to get this place, it would be the first time he's been in the points this year. But what better way to do it than actually not inheriting anything but by a really, really hard drive.
And just catching at the top of screen, Johnny Herbert, who is running 7th, beginning to draw closer to that battle for 5th place. Race leader comes out of that very unpleasant Vidal chicane. 27.5 seconds. Well, he's running at the pace of Jean Alesi. He doesn't need to do any more. And the superb preparation from Williams and from Renault, whose V10 engines have been just outstanding really since they were introduced. Really set standards to which every other engine manufacturer really seeks to achieve. 10 laps now of this 67-lap race remain. Jacques Villeneuve was going to walk away from here with a 9-point advantage in the World Championship. And Derek, we speculated that Villeneuve was the man that looked favourite to come away from here ahead of Michael Schumacher. We didn't expect to see Schumacher bumped out at this point of track on the first lap. And one wonders now, what can Schumacher do? And I have to think, well, not a great deal. So we look at our top 6. Nothing has changed in the last couple of laps. We're therefore going to take the opportunity for a quick commercial. We'll be back shortly.
What is it you want?
The same thing you do.
From Oliver Stone comes a movie about sex.
Who the hell are you? I'm her husband.
Women.
Can't live with him, can't shoot him.
Murder.
Would you? Would I what? Would you kill her?
Betrayal.
You owe me $13,000.
And everything else.
Kill him.
Kind of peculiar how things happen, ain't it?
That makes life
Do it for me, Bobby.
worth living. U-Turn. Rated R. Opens everywhere Friday.
Your heart pounds. Your head rings. Your palms sweat. Imagine how the drivers feel. Watch Alex Zanardi, the 1997 PPG Cup champion at the Kart World Series 500. Sunday night, September 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central on ESPN. Kart Championship Auto Racing Team. Feel the speed.
Do you have trouble driving in the rain? Is the glare unbearable at night? That's why STP created Vision Blade glass treatment. Vision Blade forms an invisible barrier that repels water and virtually eliminates glare. It applies in minutes and lasts for 6 months, so there's no need to reapply over and over. Look, this muddy water sticks to the glass on the untreated side, but with Vision Blade, the dirt and grime sheets away and your view remains clear. See what you've been missing with Vision Blade.
Well, it was Heinz-Harald Frenzen's view of the uphill left and right as they break into the RTL curve. Lazy still second, Frenzen dropping back slightly in third, and Gerhard Berger unable to make any impression on that duo battling for second place. Jacques Villeneuve, of course, still very comfortably in the lead. And we're now some 8 laps from the end of this 67-lap Grand Prix around the Nürburgring circuit.
Inroad into the back of Frenzen, because Frenzen's doing nothing about Jean Alesi. Jean obviously isn't holding him up, whereas at one stage I thought they might be. And I would have thought Frenzen should be really pushing. He's in front of his home crowd. He's the only German left in the race. If I was him, I'd like to try and get up there and get a 1-2 on the grid. That might be one of the last shots we're actually going to see of Flavio Briatore as team manager of, or the competitions director, if you like, of Benetton. We spoke before, David Richards, British guy, will be taking over from here on in. Flavio had been a tremendous part of motor racing for some years now, and involved with many teams, of course.
And it's going to be a great loss, I feel, to Formula One, because he's a colourful personality. He brought a new dimension, particularly on the commercial side of Formula One. He didn't see it as purely the mechanical side of the sport. He wanted to introduce a more open commercial view, and certainly some of his opinions and attitudes have been well used by other teams in Formula One. He's still going to be involved, of course, through his association with the Minardi team, and of course also with bringing along young Italian drivers, Fisichella being one, Jarno Trulli, who still again appears to be unplaced for 98, is another, and one never knows where the Italian Briatore will pop up. There was a press conference at the Nürburgring, and a lot of tears were being shed. Some of them were maybe for joy. Oh, Penna's in all sorts of trouble. Gets it wide, and look at that. Pedro Diniz lays rubber on the exit onto pit straight. So this battle, really the pressure coming from behind, and Pedro Diniz responds just ahead. Johnny Herbert now shadowing these two, draws closer and closer, and he's hoping that Panis tries to sneak down the inside, takes Diniz out, and that will see Johnny Herbert in 5th place. Well, wishing and hoping, Derek, was a great song, but it may not be the right attitude for this afternoon's Grand Prix.
Well, I'm sure Villeneuve couldn't believe that his luck was so that the two McLarens fell out, and I'm sure he'd have wished them to stop, but it did happen in his case. Oh, look at Pani understeering. He gets so much push, he seems to dive in very late on the brakes, which of course could be due to the fact that his legs are getting tired and he cannot put the pressure on the brake pedals that he'd like, which means that as he turns in with the brakes on, he just slides out, the front moves out, he's having a look down the inside, but no way, sunshine. We're not going to be able to do it here as they turn into the bit curve. Pani, nice as he goes through there, but he just doesn't seem to be able to make most of it. I think he is feeling that little bit of fatigue you mentioned earlier, John, and that is stopping him braking possibly quite as hard as he'd like to. He still brakes very well, but it means that he doesn't hit them for such a short space of time, and he gets that little bit of understeer or push as he goes in with the front brakes slightly locking up.
Well, of course, Olivier Panis had fractures of both legs, and somebody way off track, I couldn't see who it is, but kicked up an enormous amount of dust and pebbles. Well, it looked like Michelsello. That was the white car, just you got a momentary glimpse of. That long shot, of course, compresses the image we see from Diniz, Panis and Johnny Herbert. And it was Michelsello indeed. So there's the gap, half a second, 5th to 6th. And Olivier Panis looks like he's really just adding more pressure to the Brazilian as the laps count down to lap 67. Panis desperate to get into 5th place and get those 2 points. curve, climb up the hill. We're going to have a quick commercial as we look at our top 6. Join us in a moment.
Michael came onto the scene in IndyCars as a winner. I'm very proud of the fact that he's carrying on the Andretti name. I'll never forget the first really competitive pass that he did on me. We banged wheels a little bit, and he was gone. Adios, Dada.
The Andrettis rely on the same Haviland Formula 3.
Here at the Nürburgring, the Luxembourg Grand Prix, Jacques Villeneuve still comfortably in the lead of this afternoon's race. From Jean-Alesi, there's the battle going on for second place. Frentzen still shadows him in third. Gerhard Berger dropped back slightly. Berger maybe decides, well, fourth's what I can do this afternoon, but Frentzen still pressing the irrepressible Jean-Alesi. We did see Morbidelli, who was about to be lapped, but back to this battle for 5th and 6th place. Pedro Diniz, Olivier Panis, Johnny Herbert, and this battle is getting more intense as we run down in the closing laps.
And in fact, Damon Hill is reeling in behind as well, but I don't think he's going to be doing much for it in the next 4 laps. I think Berger's problem, in fact, was that he had a job to get by Morbidelli. He probably got held up in a very critical part, and that was enough. But what I can't understand is Pani keeps locking up his right-hand front tire nearly every corner he comes into due to the loading and the weight of the car, and it doesn't seem to be slowing him down very much. And I would have thought by now he had to be wearing out that right front tire, and most of he's been doing it for many, many laps.
3 laps remain for Jacques Villeneuve. If he takes the flag this afternoon, he'll walk away with a 9-point championship lead over Michael Schumacher in second. It will be Jacques Villeneuve's 11th Grand Prix win out of 31 starts, as we said earlier in the day. A very high strike rate. It'll bring him within 1 Grand Prix of the total scored by the great Mario Andretti, the 78 Formula 1 world champion, and goodness knows how many times winner in Indy racing. And Australian Alan Jones, he won in 1984. Frank Williams as well. There are the gaps, there are the positions. 64 laps. Coming around this battle for 5th place. Olivier Panis has tried everything he knows, but now the opportunity with Niki Salo. Diniz must get through, he will lose momentum otherwise. Olivier Panis has waited long for this opportunity. Will it come now? Will Johnny Herbert take advantage?
No, he goes by. Of course, the other thing that Pani had to contend with, and I think this could be part of his problem, is that by destroying his right front tire, not showing it there, of course, because he didn't come into the corner quite as fast. But of course, when you overheat the tire, or should I say, when you lock the tire like that, you also overheat it. And that could be adding fuel to the fact that he's getting a lot of push or understeer to the corner.
Jacques Villeneuve comes across the line for the 65th time. He goes on to the penultimate lap. In Formula 1, we don't have a white flag to tell you that's the message, but there, the Williams team sit back comfortably enjoying the remaining 2 laps of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Jean-Alesi comes across the line in second place. Frentzen third. Gerhard Berger, the gap now slightly more, in 4th place. And a long gap until we get 5th and 6th with Pedro Diniz, Olivier Panis and Johnny Herbert in 7th. Well, Jacques Villeneuve has allowed that lead to evaporate quite a lot in the last 10 laps. It was 27 seconds, now down to 19 seconds, no problem. But Diniz gets that left rear way over the curb on the dust in an attempt to maintain the advantage. Penny looks down the inside, but much too far behind. So we go on to the penultimate lap for the Brazilian.
I still reiterate what I said before. I think Penny's having maybe a little bit of physical problems with his legs. It's hardly surprising after the horrific accident he had only, what, 2.5 months ago. He's obviously having a problem, I believe, in hitting the brakes really, really hard and making that very short move by. Remember, they pull an immense amount of G when they're braking. This could put a lot of physical on his neck. And obviously his legs are a problem. The muscles aren't working quite as well. And to be able to stop the car as he goes by is very, very difficult for a man in this position.
Jacques Villeneuve starts the final lap of this afternoon's Grand Prix of Luxembourg here at the Nürburgring. Jean-Alesi comes across second, Frentzen in third. And by our calculations of this, the last lap, Williams could not only win this race, but they could wrap up the Manufacturers' Championship. That, of course, to Frank Williams is probably the most important part of Grand Prix racing, but equally important for Jacques Villeneuve. He will snatch this 9-point lead from Michael Schumacher. And everybody heads out to Japan in 2 weeks' time, well, that will be the key race of the 97 championship season. Battle for 5th place still raging away. Denise 5th, Hannah's 6th. This is the last lap, Olivier. If you're going to get the job done, you've got very few corners remaining. Jacques Villeneuve comes up for the last time in this race, at racing speed that is. Comes up to the Vidal chicane, this chicane that he criticised quite openly various times throughout the weekend. Now gently accelerates out of the Vidal chicane, prepares to enter into the Coca-Cola curve, and there the entire Williams-Renault team. Cars here, of course, all tobacco sponsored. This is the Luxembourg Grand Prix of the German Grand Prix. Victory for Villeneuve. Takes 10 points, sees him 9 now ahead of Michael Schumacher for the Drivers' Championship in 1997. Superb effort from Williams. Maybe Jacques Villeneuve will say, I was lucky today because those two McLaren Mercedes-Benz did dominate. Delight for Jean Alesi second, Frentzen is third, Gerhard Berger fourth, and now all attention will go to that battle for 5th place with Pedro Diniz, Olivier Panis and Johnny Herbert. Gianni Morbidelli comes across the line, of course lapped, but Pedro Diniz looks to have had the job done. He's in 5th place, he's accelerating up for the last time into the Coca-Cola curve. He comes out of the corner, accelerates, takes 5th place from Olivier Panis and has returned to Formula 1. Johnny Herbert 7th, superb from Diniz, outstanding from Olivier Panis. Jacques Villeneuve, well, maybe not his greatest win of his 11 so far in his career, but we're going to take a quick break. Join us back in a minute.
On Track Magazine, covering all major racing series worldwide. Whether it's kart, Formula One, or the Indy 500, On Track is there to give you the most complete and timely coverage. Each issue puts you on the lead lap with great photography, in-depth race coverage, plus insightful commentary and analysis.
If you want to keep up with auto racing from around the world, read On Track. I do.
Call now to put the world of racing at your fingertips with On Track Magazine, the auto racing magazine of record.
What would you give to be more confident? What would you give for the knowledge it takes to move with certainty through every business day?
Just $3.90 a week brings you the Wall Street Journal. Our personal finance guide and decision maker software is free with your paid 10-week subscription. Call now, 800-248-1300. That's 800-248-1300 for the Wall Street Journal.
Tomorrow at 6.
Donovan McNabb of Syracuse is a defensive coordinator's nightmare. So many ways to beat you with his feet, with his arm, with his head.
Then, prime time at 9.
Quarterback Herb Tyler can hurt you running and throwing. Also has the experience to be dangerous.
Syracuse, Virginia Tech at 6. LSU, Mississippi State at 9. Tomorrow night, only on ESPN.
Welcome back, Villeneuve, 77 points. Michael Schumacher on 68, and we look down through the field. Fisichella 7th, Irvine 8th, Hannes 9th, Hakkinen, of course, the great loser this afternoon in 10th place. Hill 13th, Barrichello 14th, Burtz, those 3 races from the year, in 15th. But for the Williams team, a day of celebration. They got the victory, they got a 3rd place. It's the first time we think that those two have been on the podium together. Constructors' Championship, well, 112 points for the Williams team, 86 for Ferrari. Benetton, 62, McLaren, 44, Jordan, 33. And really, for Jordan and McLaren, those two must wonder what went wrong this afternoon. Well, for Jordan, it's pretty clear because that was Ralf Schumacher who really threw the spanner in the works. But for McLaren Mercedes team, great disappointment. German Chancellor Helmut Kohl here this weekend, loves Formula One. So we look at the last time Villeneuve came through the Vidal chicane and came through almost at a walking pace, slowed right down and really, I think, breathed deeply and said, well, maybe now this is the race that has sealed my first Grand Prix World Championship. There are our results. Jacques Villeneuve, Jean Alesi, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, there the podium. Gerhard Berger, Pedro Diniz and Olivier Panis round out the top 6. Johnny Herbert 7th, Damon Hill recovers to 8th place, Gianni Morbidelli 9th, and Mika Salo last and 10th. Jean Alesi delighted with that result, makes up for the disappointment 1 week ago in Austria when he and Eddie Irvine climbed over one another. Damon Hill, well, he'll not forget that disappointment in the pit lane when he had a problem Restarting, Jacques Villeneuve. Yes, Jacques, you've won the race, and I think that it's fair to say you're going to be a world champion.
Yes, I mean, he certainly won the race. He did it exceptionally well. He had to drive a controlled race. He needed those points. He knew he couldn't beat the Mercedes. He hadn't been quicker than them all weekend. So he did the perfect job. I mean, he did the job on the day. Very difficult to go out there, control yourself, try and lose, not lose, but try and drop a second or two a lap because you're 30 seconds in the lead with 15 laps to go, just to let yourself go round, be methodical, and not actually get in there and scratch around. You've got to concentrate so hard to keep that car on the road, be absolutely immaculate. And I think what are they doing? Are they weighing themselves there or something? I thought they did that downstairs. Anyway, nonetheless, I thought it was a great drive from Jacques. Just what he had to do today. I mean, he won the race, and of course, it may well be that he won the championship through that race. It's the most important race of the year in my book for Jacques Villeneuve.
Indeed it is, a superb drive from the Canadian. It was a controlled race. He didn't have the pace of the Mercedes McLarens, but he came first, and that's what counts. Jacques Villeneuve shakes the hands of Chancellor Helmut Kohl as he makes his way to the podium, shake hands with team manager Dickie Stanford and other dignitaries here at the Nürburgring. And now the Canadian anthem. Joy on the podium from Jacques Villeneuve, Jean Alesi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And now the trophy presented by Mr. A. Baudry, the Minister for Sport for Luxembourg. Remember, this is the Grand Prix of Luxembourg, and Chancellor Dr. Helmut Kohl delighted to see high politicians here at the Nürburgring. Jean Alesi receives his trophy from Mr. Georges Arndt, President of the Automobile Club of Luxembourg. And Jean, equally delighted. Once again, Dr. Kohl offers his congratulations. And for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, again from Mr. Georges Arndt, the President of the Automobile Club of Luxembourg, the third place trophy. Dr. Kohl delights that one German driver has made it onto the podium. Disappointment, of course, for Germany that Michael Schumacher didn't make it. The winning Constructors' Trophy presented to Dickie Stanford of the Williams Renault team, Mr. Flim.
Tell you what, I hope Chancellor Kohl knows how to get out of the way, because he could get shouted in champagne, and I'm sure that's not part of the dignitaries' deal here. Oh, they're controlling it at the moment to the dignitaries' leave. Good idea, boys.
I don't think Chancellor Kohl would like the champagne over him. He certainly loves a glass of it. Ralph Schumacher, by the way, Derek, he's been called into the FIA stewards to explain his driving tactics at the start of this Grand Prix, which took out basically the battle for this year's championship when brother Michael was in effect eliminated. The Silver Magnum of Thanks to Jeroboam of Champagne. Given to Jacques Villeneuve, Valesi just dribbles a little bit more over the Canadian as they make their way now from the podium into the press conference. So we're going to take our quick break and we'll be back to enjoy Jacques Villeneuve's words of this race. Welcome back on these glorious shots of the new Nürburgring, and Derek, somewhere amongst those hills and forests is a circuit that's very close to your heart.
There it is down there. You can see the car parking all the way down the hill there. That is the down the hill section as they work their way around that beautiful, magnificent 14 miles. You can see it again over the back on the right-hand side. The circuit is all down in that area, 157 corners, something that every driver wants to win.
Well, memories of a great racetrack there. We're looking at all the fans that have come, not just from Germany, from Belgium, Holland, all over Europe. Of course, Luxembourg, the tiny duchy of Luxembourg, some 30 miles west of the Nürburgring. So we continue this scenic trip around this is the south, this is actually the current circuit, but it encompasses part of the North Scheifel and the South Scheifel, which were originally some 17 miles in length. An enormous racetrack built at the end of the 20s and early 30s to bring industry and income to this part of Germany. But let's listen to the three.
Well, Jacques, well done on your 7th victory this season. Luck seemed to be on your side a little bit today.
Yeah, it was working well today. I was a little bit worried because we banged wheel with Heinz into the first braking. I think he had someone on his outside also. And I thought that I'd bent something because it hit pretty hard, but then the car was running fine, except for the two McLarens were flying. I mean, they had more fuel than us, and they were really, really fast on this track. So if they hadn't blown up, there's no way we could have beaten them.
How quickly were you aware that Michael Schumacher had dropped out?
Almost right away. The team told me, and then out of the hairpin there's a big screen, and you can watch the race every time you go there, so I could see that he had stopped in the pits.
If the McLarens had stayed in, would you have been able to catch them, do you think, or would you have been happy to settle for third?
Well, I wasn't happy to be third, but I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't have caught them, so I would have had to settle for third. It would have been, okay for the championship, but this is definitely better.
Jacques, well done. Jean, you started 10th, so did you expect to be in the top 3 today?
Honestly, no. After my second stop, I saw on the pit board P2, and I didn't believe it because before to stop I was 8th. And really, when you start in this position, and especially I had all the Bridgestone car on the front, and it was absolutely impossible to overtake. I really want to thank everybody to give me the reliability in the car to finish in these positions.
You started 10th and you ended up quite high up after the first corner. Can you talk us through the start?
I did a very bad start, and actually it helped me a lot because I see a lot of cars flying up and smokes and dust. So I found a very small place to go, and I was 5th, I think, at the first corner, in the first lap.
Jean, well done.
Thank you.
Heinz Harald, your 4th third position in a row. You've contributed a lot towards the Williams Constructors' Championship at the moment. Did it all go planned today?
Well, not really. I mean, we banged wheels together at the start. It was pretty tight, and I knocked with my ankle. I knocked the ignition off and everything off, and I was surprised what happened then until I realized that the ignition was switched off. I was already 14th or 15th. So it was pretty disappointing at that stage. I mean, I had many guys in front of us, and we were fighting for every tenth, and it was very difficult to overtake them. Step by step, it was running fine. It was a good maneuver with Gerhard Berger. We were trying to go into the pits, and then Berger changed his plan, went into the pits as well, and then we stayed out. And I think that was the reason I managed to overtake Gerhard. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult. But I feel also very happy for Renault because we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 finish. And that's a great day for Renault, especially because they're quitting Formula 1 next year.
Thanks very much, Heinz Harald. Jacques, we go to Suzuka. You're 9 points ahead now, and Williams are 26 points ahead. What are your thoughts on the Japanese circuit?
Well, my thoughts are pretty good. It's a great track, and I love driving there. It should suit our car pretty well, so we should be competitive there. And all we need to do now is 1 point more than Michael, as we have more victories than him to win the championship. So that's what will be important, to qualify well and then to just stay in front of Michael.
Thanks very much, Jacques. Now some comments on in
well,
the race.
amazing tales of woe from all three, and from Jacques Villeneuve to say that he took his eyes off the road down at the Dunlop curve, looked up at the TV screen, saw Michael Schumacher step out of his car. Well, the guy we know is a great racing driver, but he's also an exceptionally bright young man, and intelligence, believe me, plays a very large part in the success of Jacques Villeneuve en route to his first World Championship. We're going to have a quick look at the billboards here and we'll be back with you very shortly indeed. This program has been brought to you by Prestone Antifreeze. Protect your car in the Prestone zone.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and I'm here to show you a great new hand tool from Sears. What you working on, Tim?
Well, I'm fixing this wheel, but these pliers make it really difficult. I mean, it takes two hands to adjust them, and even then it doesn't fit quite right, so I end up rounding off this nut.
Try RoboGrip instead of those slip joint pliers. With RoboGrip's unique design, you only need one hand to use them. Just a simple squeeze of the spring-loaded hand.
Back of the race car. This car burned to a crisp. They have now gone to a backup car. And now, the top three in qualifying. If you're from Batesville, Arkansas, stick out your chest and vote, because all the top